Yeah. It's red panty night when you decide to fight me, eh? Back at home with your wife. Just celebrate.
This episode right now is brought to you by Mitchell Made.
We go to prizepicks.com, the sponsor of today's video. Use code GURU at prizepicks.com. New user offer, play $5 and get $50 instantly in lineups to use. And that's if you use code GURU when you sign up as a new member. And in this week's one, I'm going to go with ROYVAL.KAPE to fight for more than 18 minutes fight time against Brandon Royval in the main event. I'm Stephen Asplund. I'm going to go with Stephen Asplund, the SAG man himself. I reckon he'll get a KO here. This should be a pretty early KO for Stephen Asplund. Yeah, this is a tough one to call, though. Asplund got a really nasty KO on the Contender Series that kind of put him into the UFC. Sean Sharaf, on the other hand, is a little bit of a different situation. Lost in his UFC debut, had a bit of a stinker there. Asplund's, of course, taller, got the reach. Even though he's very saggy, I do think he's the more athletic out of the two of them. Okay? I do think he's actually quite a decent athlete as well. All right, I do think he's quite a decent athlete. Like, he's got fast hands and, like, a nasty KO that he had on the Contender Series in September. So he took time after that, you know, a couple of months, got back in this matchup. And then you got Sean Sharaf. And it's just a chubster, can grapple a bit. Lost to Junior Taffer, I was going to say that. I just had to verify real quick if you can see my eyes averting lower here. But lost to Junior Taffer, got KO'd. Had some good moments early in his grappling. I just think Stephen Asplund is like a bit talented. And he does have fast hands. Will he get out grappled by Sean Sharaf, though? That is a thing to wonder. But then again, the Taffer bros are known for getting toppled over and having really weak grappling. And Sharaf couldn't do that to Taffer, who then put him away in round 2. So I'm going to go with Asplund. Be careful, Sean Sharaf. Your ass is about to be plundered by Stephen Asplund. And he's going to score a TKO in the early rounds. First or second, I reckon Stephen Asplund gets the first round KO, just jiggling all over, just fucking knocks him out cold. He hypnotizes Sharaf with footwork, making it all swirl, and then puts him away in round 1 with a jelly roll combo. Moving on, up the card, Neil Magny versus Yaroslav Amosov. The level of disrespect, my brother. The level of disrespect. Neil Magny should not be this early on. This should be on the main. This is the co-main event. I know I got my boy Kevin Vallejos, man, on the co-main event, but this is the co-main event of the card. This is Yaroslav Amosov, the best guy outside the UFC at welterweight for like not a decade, but like 5 years running. People were saying, this is the guy outside the UFC that you got to watch out for at welterweight. When are we going to get him in the UFC? And in true UFC fashion, they waited for him to get chinned by Jason Jackson in the 3rd round in order to sign him. The guy's 28-1. You could have got him at 26-0. Abysmal. He fought Curtis Millender on the regional scene at CFFC, submitted him immediately in round 1. He's very good, Yaroslav Amosov, and Millender's a tall, lanky guy like Neil Magny, so he just had experience fighting that. My thing in this matchup is the grappling of Amosov. He's good on the feet. He's not... The thing about Amosov is he's never doing anything too... wow. You know? Which might be a good look. Because sometimes you see those... If you consistently win decisions... You are very good and you're proving that you're better than your opponent, you know, but he's fought some close ones. Logan Storley, you know, these kind of guys. I think he had a split decision with Logan Storley, but he beat Douglas Lima pretty convincingly, and he's very good. He is very good and very well-rounded, and this is him coming into his prime, and you got Neil Magny here, who's kind of just sort of like every couple of months shutting down another contender that's not good enough, and then one gets through that's really good, and then another one gets shut down that's not good enough, and this last one was Jake Matthews. But my thing is the grappling here. I think Yaroslav Amosov can hold down Magny and keep him there in half guard, and it might be a bit of a boring decision, which is maybe why they've put it this early on the card, or maybe to get people to tune in a bit earlier. But I think Yaroslav Amosov can win a boring decision here, 29-28. The thing is, Magny took advantage of Mallet because Mallet's a bit inexperienced and he was in front of his home crowd and it was a big moment for him. And he fumbled it at the end of the third, didn't he? And before that, he was doing great. Low kicks, working the system, got the takedown and held it on Neil Magny. And it was a shutdown performance from Mallet until that third round moment. Now, I think Amosov can do those first 2 rounds, but then he's also got the 28-1 heaps and heaps of championship bouts at Bellator experience to not fumble it. There is no fumble going to happen. Same thing with Jake Matthews, right? He gets himself put into the Dash choke, I think it was, and he thinks he has the guillotine in round 1, but Magny never tapped, and all of that situation. There's a lot of like rookie you're dumb mistakes that sometimes allow Magny into the fight. You know, sometimes they allow Magny back into the fight and he gets back into things. But I'm going to go with Amosov. I don't think Magny's going to put pepper on him on the feet. I don't think he's going to be able to take him down. No way. I don't see Magny taking down Amosov. So I think this is Amosov's fight to win. And if it's his fight to win, it's his fight to fumble. And that's where Magny's opportunity is, which is probably why he's such a big favorite, even though we keep seeing him shut down these guys. But Amosov's got the experience and the veteranship and the high-level fight experience to not fumble it. So that's where it's his fight to fumble, and he's too experienced to fumble. He don't fumble, although he did against Jason Jackson. So I'm going to go with Yaroslav Amosov, getting this one done by decision win, 30-27, out-grapples Neil Magny, mixes it up on the feet a little bit as well. But I think that's where it will be. Half guard camping and winning via that. Yaroslav Amosov gets this one done. We move on. It wasn't what was on the fucking page. So this is a short notice backup opponent because this was Joe Anderson Brito versus Melsik Bagdasaryan. And of course, we know Joe Anderson Brito. That's a known fighter to us. You know, he had very good fights with... he beat up on Jack Shaw, my boy Jack Shaw. You know, he put him away, smashed up his shins in that fight, and he's a very aggressive, very explosive fighter. He kind of got beat by William Gomez, even though a lot of people scored that to William Gomez. He did get beaten by him, and if you watch back the fight, you can see that even though he's being very aggressive, he did make a lot of mistakes moving forward, and he wasn't actually landing a whole bunch either. And he also has a win over Diego Lopez. But I'm going to find out who this Isaac Thompson guy is on the fucking fly, as this is a day's notice change to the division. He's from he's from Australia, taking this fight on short notice. Could Quillen Sal killed it. He's young, 23, on a bit of a streak. Beat Islomboev in a fight. Before that, fought an 8-6 opponent. Then he took Israel Delgado, 4-3. Israel Delgado, who's now 4-4. Took him to a 3-round decision. Lost a split decision in 2024 to Shaheen Santana. A split decision with him. Who I actually recognize for some fucking weird reason. Has he been in the UFC or on Tough or something along those lines? He was on the Contender Series against Natan Levy. And he lost to Natan Levy in a fight. Yeah. I'm going to go Joe Anderson Brito to destroy a guy who maybe shouldn't be here on a day's notice. Could Isaac Thompson pull it off? Maybe. But there's good odds here that we're going to see Joe Anderson Brito destroy a guy that just ain't ready for the big lights. Big moment for him. Fly across the world. I've been signed. Oh, this is amazing. Brito. Brito on the other corner, stomping, amping himself up, just getting ready to destroy another guy who maybe is going to crumble in front of him. So I'm going to go with Joe Anderson Brito to get this one done. His grappling is sometimes much to be desired, even though he beat Jonathan Pierce. That was a little bit scary at one moment, and I think he just got out-grappled by Pat Sabatini as well. Which isn't that bad. You know, Pat Sabatini's pretty good at doing that. But I'm going to go with Joe Anderson Brito here. That's what I'm going to go with. TKO finish, early in the fight. First round destruction from Joe Anderson Brito. We move on. Lance Gibson Jr. This is short notice, but I knew about this one. Lance Gibson Jr. is not the best. He has some KO power, but it's against like a 16-45 opponent on the regional scene. I don't get why they've signed this guy. And now maybe it's just like, oh my God. I think the UFC were looking at him thinking, oh my God, that card looks terrible for the end of the year. We kind of need something else. And their something else was, let's see what Bobby Green's up to and whether or not he wants to take a fight. He's always fun. So I think they wanted to guarantee another fun fight on this card that people would pay a bit of attention to. And that's Bobby Green. You know? Cue Bobby Green joining the card on short notice. This is a catchweight. 160. I think Bobby's going to win. I think Bobby's going to win this one. Lance Gibson Jr., 9-1. A lot of people would think at this point, you know, Lance Gibson Jr., you know, up-and-coming prospect, dangerous, looks athletic, has power. Therefore, he's going to chin Bobby Green. And you might be right to say, but this is a big moment for him. Short notice. Got to make the weight. Signed to the UFC. Hasn't fought in a year. Hasn't beat really anyone that good. Hasn't beat anyone that good. Took some sour-looking opponents to a decision as well. And that's where I think Bobby Green's going to have an advantage here. He also lost. His one loss wasn't the best either. On his record, old Bobbius Greenus. Not Bobby Green, but this guy, Lance Gibson Jr. And he's had a stinker in his career. Early doors. Let me find out who this guy lost to. I think the guy was like 5-2. Or something along those lines. It's like the first good opponent that he fought kind of handled him a little bit. I remember looking up this guy's career. He trains with Julia Budd, who was like a women's Bellator, good level fighter that ended up fighting Chris Cyborg and not doing the best against her as most women seem to do. But he fought Vladimir Tokov, lost by first round TKO. And that guy didn't really go on to be anything either. And that was at Bellator. 15-2 opponent. 19-42, as I said before. TKO in the first round. Beat a guy 5-2 in his last fight. That was a year ago. After leaving Bellator off a loss. Had a bunch of fights early doors at Bellator. I think he's the son of a UFC fighter, which was a big thing. Like a former UFC guy that was known in the scene. But I don't see anything special here. That's the guy. 4-2 Dung. I should have remembered his fucking name. Dung. Took him to a decision. And it's just like, the guy's name is shit. You know? He isn't the best. He's now 5-3. Hasn't really committed to the game since. And that wasn't that long ago for Lance Gibson Jr. So maybe Lance Gibson Jr. has evolved to the level of, he's now the fucking guy and now he's made the improvements and he's just reached his prime and you'll all see. That's what it's going to take for me to be impressed by this because Bobby Green has seen it all. And yes, he's lost to Paddy Pimblett and yes, he's lost to Mauricio Hafi. And he's been lost to Jalen Turner, but these are all very good fighters that I don't even know if Lance Gibson Jr. is any good yet. You know, this isn't a surging prospect in the UFC. This isn't a really good prospect outside of the UFC. This is a random Canadian guy that's in the UFC. Maybe he'll hate me on this if he does beat Bobby Green. I proved everyone wrong, but that is the way to look at this. And shouldn't be in the UFC. He's Canadian, therefore he got signed. They really want Canadian talent. They're going to give Mike Mallet Gilbert Burns. I don't know if you guys saw Gilbert Burns leak that the other day, but yeah, that's the way I see this. So I'm going to go with Bobby Green getting this one done. Decision win. Decent scrap. I think he'll be smooth sailing here. And he's good at this, short notice step-ups. This is nothing new to him, so I'm going to go Bobby Green to get this one done. We move on.
Right in front of you. No, in front of you, like behind you?
Yeah.
But to the side, she's got a fucking
Marcus Buchecha. I'm going to go over Nuzachukwu over Buchecha. Buchecha's strong. He's good. He looked a bit messy against Martin Bidet. And I think Nuzachukwu's lighter man grappling understanding is going to come in handy here. And I think he's going to put away Marcus Buchecha in his re-debut in the UFC. Didn't have a good performance against Bidet. It was close, to be fair. And Bidet is quite difficult to topple over. But Bidet is a chubster. You know, Bidet is a chubster. And Buchecha got very tired and worn out and broken in that fight as it went on in a way. And I think Nuzachukwu's going to be able to scramble those positions. He's tall, athletic, rangy on the feet, powerful on the feet as well. I could see a first-round KO. I could see a first-round KO from Kennedy Nuzachukwu here. Buchecha, all of the accolades in jiu-jitsu. Really, really credentialed. Everyone thought he was going to be some monster coming into the UFC. And Bidet is tricky in your debut. And then they cut Bidet, but not Buchecha, which was really interesting. So they just got rid of Martin Bidet, like, oh, you beat Buchecha, fuck off then. That was a shit performance. But then they keep Buchecha, which is interesting. And there's a chick who's got a ton of experience. I don't see Buchecha giving him problems on the feet by KO. So I don't think he has anything to worry about there. I think he can keep distance. There's a chick who's a bit dumb as fuck. Like, some of his IQ decisions in fights are really fucking dumb. Like, he managed to plod his way forward against Allberg and take all the punishment and then dish it out. But he has got nothing going on in his fucking brain. Looks like he's wearing one of those English guardsman hats outside of Buckingham Palace. But I'm going to go with him to get a TKO here early. I think he'll get a TKO. And if he starts to stuff one and Buchecha's starting to huddle up against the cage and shoot in from there, we're going to see him pin the head and just smoke him up against the cage with combinations. So I'm going to say late first round TKO from Kennedy Nzechukwu. Lighter man's skill is going to come in handy dealing with this heavyweight grappler and his entries on takedowns, which aren't the best. So I'm going with Nzechukwu. First round TKO. Melquizael Costa versus Morgan Charrier. This one's tricky for me. Because I do think Morgan Charrier has a finishing advantage here over Melquizael Costa. But Morgan's lost so many times. 21-11 is his overall record, which means there are a lot of people that have found a way to defeat him. You know? Whether he tries to grapple them and they shut it down and they out-damage him. Whether it's them just out-damaging him. You know? He knocked out Nate Landwehr in his last fight in the third round. Little hairy second round. Looked good in the first round. He has a win over Gabriel Miranda by first round TKO where he looked very impressive. If he ever gets a finish, they just give him a bonus. He's a massive name. And he's been a massive name even on the regional scene at Cage Warriors. French. And he was in a bunch of rappers in France's music videos back in the day. And got a bit of star power from it as being known as like... There was no French fighters back then, you know. And there still aren't. But, you know, he's come up and he's got a big name for himself on the regional scene and beyond. But even on the regional scene, he lost a bunch. But he made it close with Paul Hughes. And he made it close with Vucenic. And I think Marko Kovacevic, Agent 47, ended up taking him to a draw. Who was a smaller guy at the time. And I'm going to go with Melquizael Costa. He seems to be tricky to figure out guys. Like Julian Erosa can sometimes be tricky, but he clearly won that one. Then Christian Rodriguez, who I think would probably beat Morgan Charrier. Just knowing, if Charrier was on a bit of a streak and came up against Christian Rodriguez, I'd probably just take him to win. Christian Rodriguez would just fraud check him, you know? So I think Melquizael Costa's been figuring out a ton of good opponents. Immediately subbed Andre Fili. Immediately put him away with a guillotine. Looked good on the feet early and then put him away. He's been massively improving. He's larger than Charrier. He's got a reach advantage over Charrier. And he's been looking good and coming into his prime. And he's not old himself. He's 28 years of age. This isn't like an older, grizzled vet in Costa versus Morgan Charrier. He got beaten by Steve Garcia by TKO, but that isn't that bad in hindsight. Really. Caught a submission on Shagilan Nurdiembeke in the third round. He has many ways to win. So I'd say Morgan Charrier has a bit more power, but if this gets into a back and forth competitive fight, which I assume that it will, I think we're going to see Melquizael Costa start to take over, put the pressure on, wear him down, start to build, throw in combination, mix in the grappling and the striking, and I reckon he's going to get this one done. So I'm going to go with Melquizael Costa getting this one done by decision win. Based on the last two rounds. I think we'll see Charrier take the first. Maybe a hairy moment for Costa. But then in a second and third, I think we'll see Costa start to push it. And push a bit of a pace and be a bit crafty. And put on like a crafty kind of a vet performance against Morgan Charrier. I'm going with Melquizael Costa. We move on. Cesar Almeida versus Cezary Oleksiejczuk. Almeida's good, but not that good. We've seen him in trouble. We've seen him picked apart. He's managed to find wins over guys. Against Ihor Potieria, he made it a very yucky fight, and he was fouling non-stop in that fight as well, so there's no way he gets away with that shit now. But I'm going to go with Cezary Oleksiejczuk. Cesar Almeida was a good kickboxer, trains with Alex Pereira, so he's kind of got a good sparring partner here. But Cesari's good at being rangy with his shots and keeping distance and popping in and out and floating like that. And he's not like an Abdulrazak Hassan who's going to bulldoze forward and try and pour it on Cesar Almeida and break him in his face and then get KO'd on the counter by Cesar Almeida. And even Almeida got dropped by Abdulrazak Hassan in that fight. But I think the difference is if Cesare Oleksiejczuk drops him, he'll feint, he'll move, pop, pop, slip, right hand. It'll be more controlled. He's got IQ diff over Abdulrazak Hassan, who again is a bit of a dumb, like no IQ to him whatsoever. So I'm going to go with Cesare Oleksiejczuk here. Sharpshooter on the outside, got a bit of reach to work with as well. Of course, brother of Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, goes without saying. It's a fucking rare-ass surname. So yeah, I'm going to go with him to win. I don't know, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's more common in Poland. But yeah, Cesar Almeida just seems in trouble too many times. And it's the Ihil Peteria fight. You should be putting away Ihil Peteria if you're that special. But he took it to a shitty decision, and he had to cheat his way through it. And Ihil was giving him problems with that flicky, movie, in and out movement, which doesn't give a lot of middleweights problems. And that's why Cesar Almeida resorted to cheating against him non-stop. I think he landed about 5 fucking eye pokes against him in that fight. It was so bad. And no point was taken, by the way. Fucking insane. So, Cesare Oleksiejczuk for the win. Sharpshooter, coming into his prime. Had some learning experiences earlier in his career. Won on the Contender Series, took his time, now he's here. I'm going to take him to win this one by TKO early in the fight. We move on. Giga Chikadze versus Kevin Vallejos, man. El Chino, we are going to destroy Giga Chikadze, dude. We are going to win this fight by decision. We are going to get kicks to the forearms over and over and over again. And it's really going to hurt our forearms after the fight. We are going to eat a head kick at one point, but then just shake it off and keep pushing forward. We are going to pressure Giga Chikadze backwards and make him work on the back foot. And we are going to mix in the takedowns, Kevin Vallejos. Where we can. Late in the rounds, you've got this guy on the back foot. We mix in the takedowns like David Onama did, and we have a similar type of performance. So I think this is going to be a bit of a back and forth one on the feet. Giga might show a bit of an advantage, but I think this is the difference. Kevin Vallejos, short, stocky, great chin, tough, took big shots off Gene Silver and just kept pushing forward. As a young kid, it's always got to be mentioned. Gene Silver's so sick, so when you see a guy have a 29-28 scrap with him, you think, yeah, this guy could be something, seeing as he's like 22, 21 years old when he goes to that scrap with Gene Silver. So I'm going to go with Kevin Vallejos here. I think he's good. He's defensively responsible, which I like. It's going to be hard for Giga with his height difference to find those body kicks as much. So he's going to be slamming head kicks into the forearms of Kevin Vallejos, which means he's going to be up on one leg a lot. He's going to be leaning back a lot, throwing stuff and trying to clear space and get distance of Vallejos pushing forward against him. So I think Vallejos' takedowns are going to come in handy here. If he shoots in as Giga goes for one of those kicks, scoops up the rear leg, takes him down, pushes him up against the cage, works inside-outside trips. And we saw that in his last one, that Vallejos is willing to shoot those takedowns on Danny Silva. And that one got a bit close for my liking. But I think Giga's kind of falling off a little bit in his older age. He's not looking as good since Calvin Kattar put that whipping on him by putting pressure on as a pure boxer, moving forward, breaking him, taking his best shots, walking him down. And Onama just did a similar thing, right? Where in that fight, he got the takedowns at the end of the round. And Chikadze just doesn't seem to have the good get-up ability. His takedown defense in the first place is all right. It's pretty decent. Especially when he knows it's coming and he's in full control on the feet. But when it comes to him like getting himself back up on the feet, getting to his knees against the cage and walking back up against the cage and getting underhooks, he just doesn't ever seem to be able to pull that off. Like if you get him down, he's probably going to be there for a while. So I think Vallejos will have a tricky first round where he pressures a ton, but maybe gets out-kicked by Giga Chikadze, lands some good shots of his own that kind of get Chikadze's attention, and then once he's got his attention with some boxing, I think he'll be able to mix in takedowns and start working that in the second and third, and also start working the body on Chikadze with punches, leaning forward. Got to watch for any up the middle, but I trust in Vallejos' chin and his experience. The guy's 25 years old or 24 years old. 23. I don't know how old we are, which is a weird thing because you think I would know how old we are because it's us. But he's 16-1. Ton of experience. Had his close decision against Danny Silva, but won it, in my opinion, clearly. And had that test. So I'm going to trust him to beat Giga Chikadze here. And he fought a long, rangy striker in his debut in Sung Wung Chung. Or was it Ching Vu Choi? Or Stang Yang Kung? Or Choi Wung Yung? Sting Pong Chow? I don't remember what fighter it was that he fought in his Kung Pao. I don't remember what fucking fighter it was. I think it was Sung Woo Choi. Not Sung Woo Choi. Asian. 3 names. Vallejos put him away in 1 round. That's all you need to know. Tall, big, rangy, throws a lot of heat at range. And Vallejos put him away. So I'm going to go with Kevin Vallejos. Getting this one done over Giga Chikadze. Last performance was pretty iffy from Giga. And he doesn't look as stingy on the feet anymore. Onama, let's face it, in hindsight, is pretty easy to wobble and put away. And I didn't see much of that from Chikadze. So I'm going to go with Kevin Vallejos getting this one done. And I'm going to take him to win by decision. 29-28. And then we are going to take on Gene Silver at some point. And we will get our revenge. That's what's going to happen. Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape. I'm going to go with Brandon Royval. And Brandon Royval is like a plus 200 and something underdog. I don't know why. I have no idea why those are the odds. I think Brandon Royval is going to beat Manel Kape as this fight goes on. Manel Kape's had some close ones, you know. And I want to say, with every Manel Kape win, there's kind of some asterisks there. You've got to consider, you know, with the Asu Almabayev win, we cheated our way to victory. I mean, it wasn't us, actually. It was just Manel Kape. He cheated his way to victory against Asu Almabayev with the eye pokes. And maybe he's going to get away with that here, and then we'll be talking about... But I think they're more keen to look out for that since the Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gane situation. So I could see a point deduction for Manel Kape. Because he does do a lot of things like that, right? Where it's like... barely walking the line before nearly getting a point deduction, but not really. And that does seem to be the case. So I could see a point deduction here for Manel Kape. And in the 5-rounder, that's very important. But Royval's very good. Beat Taylor, very impressive. And his scrambling is very good. And his pressure's very good. And he's got full volume. And I'm thinking, lots of volume, straight punches, pop shots, in and out movement, herky-jerky on the outside. I remember Manel Kape versus Felipe Dos Santos. And that was supposed to be really easy for Manel Kape. And it wasn't. It was a very close fight. I think it ended up being a split decision, but I thought Manel won 2-1. And he had good moments where he had power. And I could see him dropping Royval at one point. Not enough for a 10-8. Just a knockdown moment happens or something like that to give him a round. But I don't know if he's going to be able to go 5 rounds at the pace that Brandon Royval is. Ton of experience for Royval. Kape's been out for a while. This fight was supposed to happen in June, where I think Royval, or was it happening a bit later than that? Royval then ended up fighting Joshua Van elsewhere on short notice. Something else happened in the meantime. But Kape broke his foot in the build-up of this first fight, and he has a lot of injuries. And he often has a tough weight cut to make flyweight. And I don't see him finishing Brandon Royval by TKO. You got to be something special to finish Brandon Royval by TKO. And Kape let the Nicolau fight get away from him a bit. Split decision there. I thought he won. No. Did I? Yeah, I thought he won that fight. But it was very, very close. And Nicolau was able to do some things and show him those levels. And certain level of striker, he's not Bruno Silvering them, where he's just moving and zipping out the way and doing all this crazy stuff. So I think Manel Kape is really good at making just lesser than him look way worse than him. But he's also really good at making a really stinky close one with someone just a bit better than him. And I think Brandon Royval with his volume, pressure, cardio, experience, 5-round experience in the UFC as well, got to be mentioned. Went 5 with Taylor with a bunch of grappling and still put the pace on him. He's been 5 with Brandon Moreno. If I'm not mistaken, he's been 5 with Pantoja. and landed a lot of volume in that fight. Pantoja had to take him down and hold him there quite a bit in that fight. So I'm going to go with Brandon Royval. 3 hard rounds with Van. Took everything that he threw. I don't think Kap's going to be able to keep that for long. He could chin Royval, and we could see something crazy here, and maybe Royval took too much damage against Van, but I don't think so. I can't rely on someone to win because they'll win by KO at flyweight, especially if you're Kap and you don't win that often by KO, unless you've like fouled someone really badly, or it's Bruno Silva, who's not the best. So I like the ranginess of Royval here. The height is going to be a bit of a problem for Kap in terms of catching him. And I think he can flick and tap at Kap for the first 2 rounds while Kap lands some big shots and then start to pressure him, break him, walk him down, take the last 3 rounds. I'm going to go with Brandon Royval winning this one by decision in a great scrap at the end of the year. 48-47, 49-46, 48-47. Your winner by unanimous decision, Brandon Raw Dog Royval. He gets this one done. Brandon Royval snaps it back and proves that he's a top dude. So far, Kap's fallen just short. Although he did have a decent fight with Pantoja early in his career. He's fallen just short. And I think he's a good counter grappler. And I think that's why you saw the Makayev fight end up being a bit of nothing. You know? But you also saw on the feet, Makayev did give him some problems on the feet there. But he shuts down grapplers and beats him up. Strikers like Royval, rangy guys that can work on the feet and be very technical there. Felipe Dos Santos. Similar style to Royval, but nowhere near as good. Took this guy to a split decision. I don't like that. I'm going with Brandon Royval getting this one done against the odds in the final card of the year. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later.
I've spent a lot of time, Joe, slating everybody in the company. Backstage, I'm starting fights off everybody. I've ridiculed everyone on the roster. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double